Hi, I'm Becky Johnson with Sweetheart Quilt Design Company, and today we are going to talk about how to enlarge blocks when you're paper piecing. So, long time ago when I was a pretty new quilter, I had this quilt pattern that had a whole bunch of 2-inch squares, 480 to be exact. Anyway, I wanted to make them 2.5. Now, some of them were paper pieced. So I took the drawing in the book was 2.5 inches. So I took that to the copier. I wanted to make them 3 inches. So that was 20% more. So I increased them by 20%, gave me 120. And then I sewed them all together and none of my seams lined up. I thought, what did I do wrong here? I think I did it right. It finally dawns on me that in increasing the whole thing, I had also increased the size of the seam allowance, but I was just using it like I hadn't. So that's why my seams weren't lining up. So what you need to do if you want to increase the size of a paper pieced block, I've drawn a very simple pattern for paper piecing. And you need to measure, so the solid line will be your cut edge. This dotted line is the finished size or your seam line, and then these lines of course are for your paper piecing. So you need to take your ruler and measure where the seam lines are or the finished size of your block. So it's going to be 4 inches. So in this case I want it to be a 6-inch finished block. So if you take 6 divided by 4, it comes up to 1.5. And to translate that into a copier, it usually comes out as 150%. So I took it to my copier and I made it 150% bigger. Now what I'm concerned about here is what size my finished block measures, and it measures 6 inches, so I've succeeded. Now you can see what I was talking about with that seam allowance, increasing the seam allowance. But we can go ahead and piece it with this, and we'll take care of the seam allowance at the end. So you go ahead and sew your pieces in. Now the way I like to trim paper piecing, I don't try and do the cut edge, so that's why you don't have to redraw. You could go in here and redraw your seam allowance. But what I like to do is take this 1/4 inch line on my ruler and I line it up with the dotted line here at the edge, and then go ahead and trim it like that, work my way around the block. And you want to do that. You don't want to you don't want to trim a paper piece block too big, because you're not used to working with a block that's cut too big. So you will sew it in with your regular scant 1/4 inch seam allowance and it won't fit. So make sure that you get those trimmed to 1/4 inch. So anyway, that's it. Have fun with it. And we'll see you next time. Please like us and subscribe.